Good morning, guys, and welcome to the show. Today we have Toyota, what is this, Fernando?
Tacoma.
Thank you. We have a Toyota Tacoma, and not just any Toyota Tacoma. This is a part 3. You guys might remember this. We put the Elevate in it. We put some MX speakers in the door. Stinger X sound treatment. Well, today it's back for us to finally finish the system. We're gonna be putting in a new MX Series 5. Well, you know what? Before we get to all that, let's roll the intro. I'll meet you guys on the other side, and I'll tell you all about what we're gonna put in. To power this system, we're gonna be using a Phoenix Gold amplifier, this guy right here. Let's head over to the bench and take a look at it, shall we? So for this install, we're gonna be using the Phoenix Gold MX 800.5 5-channel amplifiers. For those of you guys that are unfamiliar with this line of amplifiers, there's actually 3 amplifiers in the lineup. There's the 800.5 5-channel, there's an 800.1 monoblock, and MX 604 4-channel amplifier. Now the nice thing about them all is they're all identical in size. Speaking of size, let's open it up and take a look at it. When you first open up the box, you're gonna notice the burn-in birth certificate on the top. This one gives us our power ratings: 70 watts by 4 at 4 ohm, 100 watts by 4 at 2 ohm, 300 by 1 at 4 ohm, or 400 by 1 at 2 ohm. Then it gives us what it was measured at. This one came in at 77 watts, 104 watts, 303 and 409. So a little bit over what it's supposed to do. Inside the bag, you have your amplifier warranty and the manual itself. Now in the box is also the bass knob. One of the cool features about this bass knob is that it is nice and small, but it has a really long neck right here to mount through the plastic. There is no underdash mount available for this. It is a drill only. And on the other end, it has a phone cable. There's also a bag of 4 screws and 2 Allen keys. This is the amplifier here. The size of the amplifier, and there again, all 3 amplifiers are the same size, is 5.9 inches across, 10.16 inches in length, and 1.9 inches tall. Looking at the side of the amplifier, we have a 4-gauge input for power, ground, and of course a remote in the middle. It has 80 amps of fusing on it. You have your fronts across the top here, clearly indicated positive and negative. This is channel left. This is channel right. Your rears are across the bottom, and then your subwoofer is located here on these last 2 that are over and under. Positive on top, negative on bottom. Looking at the other end of the amplifier, you have your 6 preamps located here, and those preamps have an input voltage range of 207 millivolts to 5.2 volts. First one up is going to be front, then rear, then sub. Now this has balanced or unbalanced depending on if you want to hook it up to a factory high-level output stereo or RCAs, and that is selectable for both front, rear on this switch and sub on this one. First up is going to be your gain control for your rear and your high pass filter. Your high pass filter is a Linkwix Riley, and it is adjustable between 40 to 500 hertz. Gain for front, crossover for rear. Gain for front, high pass crossover for front, matches the rear as far as frequency range. Subwoofer input switch here, or if you want to run it off of front and rear, you just have a front and rear output from your source unit. If you press this button, it'll automatically use these 2 to feed your subwoofer so that you'll have a non-fade subwoofer control. Then we have our subwoofer gain, our bass boost, which is 0 to 18 dBs of boost, and our crossover, which is variable between 50 to 250 hertz. Now all the crossovers are 12 dB, and your bass knob plugs in right here. Power indicator is located next to that. With the power LED, blue means it's operating perfectly fine, red means that it's in protect and something bad has happened. The amplifier itself is a Class D amplifier, full aluminum, operating voltage between 8 and 16 volts with an unregulated power supply. Let's see what this thing looks like inside. Now to do that, we just so happen to have another one that has the bottom off of it that we have for demonstration purposes when we're talking about amplifiers. Taking a closer look at the inside, you can see that it's nicely packed and well laid out. We have giant bus bars for that 4-gauge over here. Here's our giant power supply. Our gain control and crossover section is separated over here on another board. Now that we know what this thing can do, let's get it mounted to its amp board, and you know what that means, let's do some pretty wiring. Now for mounting this amplifier, we've kind of been scratching our head as far as what we wanted to do. Our first thought was to put it here behind the driver's rear seat, in this area right here. And this is a perfectly respectable area. The problem is, the way the amplifier needs to sit, because it has wires coming out of the top and bottom of the amplifier, it really can't go this way all that well because it makes it really hard to get to these. We mount it like this, it needs to be up too high. That spot just kind of, it wasn't working for me. The next spot that we were thinking was underneath the driver's front seat. This area right here. The amplifier will fit here. However, closely looking underneath the seat, there's seat rails on these sides that, well, we have to be perfectly center the amplifier, and of course it can't go too far forward because there is a piece up underneath there that gets in the way. Plan is to make a mount that'll allow us to retain the factory screw positions in the back and move the amplifier as far back as possible so that it doesn't get bumped or any of the wires get pinched or knocked around or anything like that. Now I need to take some measurements and figure out how this is gonna sit. First thing I want to do is take these little goof guys off. So I've taken some measurements for some plastic I'm going to cut out. I think for this I'm going to use some ABS, some 1/4 inch. So with all the marking and cutting and everything done, we ended up with this guy here. The only thing I have left to do is drill the holes where the seat belts go through. But this will slide up underneath the seat. I made a little mark right here also so I know where the amplifier has to lay so it doesn't get hit by that track that's underneath there. I'm gonna head over to the bench and drill these holes. When drilling your seat bolts into the ABS like that, step bit works great. Make sure you go a little bigger than you feel you might need. The seats have like washers welded to the bottom of them as spacers. If they do, that's great because you can get a hole that's big enough. The washers will go through our hole. Also, you want to be able to just line this up perfectly, so if the holes are a little big, it's okay. As you saw there, I like to go through both sides, not just one. It just makes for a better hole. We have 2 of the 3 pieces we're gonna need to get this in the truck. We have the amplifier, we have the amp board. We haven't talked about any of the wiring we're gonna use. For that, we're gonna be using all Stinger X series wiring. We've chosen the Stinger X 1269 6-channel 9-foot RCA or 2.7 meters. We don't need a ton of length. We're not gonna be going out and up the driver's side. We're actually gonna be going up the center console. But in this particular vehicle, the console you have to go really far forward up into the dash and then come back up and around. It's not a really tight turn. Normally we would just go with 6-footers, but because of that, we're gonna go a little bit longer and go with these. Fernando's already opened the kit to grab the fuse holder out of, which we'll show you once we get it into the car. We have 2 lengths of ground wire. They're about 3 feet a piece. And the reason why they give you 2 ground wires as opposed to just 1 is in some vehicles, they have like an 8 or 10 gauge ground. You're running a 4 gauge wire, make a better ground. They give you that extra ground and a ring terminal for that to improve the factory ground and of course ground your amplifier. Then we have the main power wire, we have the remote turn on, we have their 3-hole ground terminal. There's also ferrules inside of here for the 4 gauge wire. So it comes with everything you need. They also put the flex loom over the wire that's going to be underneath the hood. And they do this here so that you can cut it and put your fuse right in this area, which is the maximum length that fuse holder should be away from the battery. Now that's not to say you can't put it here, anywhere along here. They just do this as a, hey, don't go over here. That would be bad. I'm going to grab this wire here. One of my grounds, my ferrules. For this, we're going to be using speed wire, and that has the remote turn on built inside of it. Let's get started.